Serious, what revenge of yours hit the victim way worse than you thought it would, to the point you said maybe I shouldn't have done that? When I was in 9th grade, a kid ruthlessly bullied me for a few months. I had gotten sick of it and devised a plan for revenge. Every Wednesday we would get to sit outside for quiet reading time. And this kid would always go back inside for a PSS. I had left and waited in the bathroom for him, peeking under the stall for his chest to appear. He came in the bathroom, took his PSS, then played on his Game Boy for the rest of reading time. The bell rang and he walked out to the crowded stairwell still looking down at his Game Boy. I bumped into him. He fell face first down the stairs, knocked out 4 front teeth. Everyone on the stairs assumed he fell because he was playing his Game Boy. I feel pretty bad about it. Had a roommate who basically let his new GF move into our house in college. She helped herself to everything in the house but never contributed. Finally she parked in my parking spot and that was my breaking point. I let all the air out of all of her tires, thinking she'd just air them back up and it would be an inconvenience. Instead she ended up buying all new tires. Whoops. Never came clean about it. She's an idiot. She probably tried driving on them before she realized and destroyed them. Not many people would check their tires before driving and I've never driven with flat tires, but it might not have been immediately noticeable. It's immediately noticeable. I'm still mad at myself for this. When I was a preteen, my friend and I went to one of those day camps that picked us up in yellow school buses. One of the other kids on our bus was a younger boy I'll refer to as Eli. Eli was a fucking terror. He would scream and spit and hump things, make a mess, and be as annoying and insufferable as possible. Riding the bus with him was a nightmare for everyone involved most of the time. So I came up with this idea. I found his family in the phone book and called up pretending to be a camp counselor. I told his mom that he was misbehaving on the bus and that he would either be disciplined or kicked out of the camp if he didn't stop. She bought it. Said she would talk to him about it. I felt so fucking smart. Until the next day, when a quiet, sullen Eli showed up with a black eye. Edit. Apparently a lot of you don't believe that a preteen could convincingly sound like a camp counselor over the phone. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe the static of our connection made my fake adult voice more convincing. Or Eli's parents were really gullible. Or they were just looking for any old excuse to beat up their kid. I don't remember the precise details of a conversation I had like 17 years ago. But I really did call his family. And he really did show up with a black eye the next day. If I were going to lie about this, I'd have probably come up with a cooler story. Co-worker and I had a friendly prank war spanning 2 years. Close to the end of our war he iced my car. Icing involves taking the hose to the parking lot every half hour and spraying a light mist over your victim's car when it's below 0 out. I finished my 12 hours shift to find a car encased in 2 inches of ice. My revenge was, I thought, both more inconvenient for him and less freezing my balls off for me. I decided to take a bedsheet, pay it over his car, and only took 4 or 5 trips out with the hose the next night. So the next morning he finds his car with a 1/4 inch of ice freezing a sheet to his car. When he started peeling off the sheet he pulled his windshield wipers, arms and all off of his ratty Jeep. I got a very pissed off phone call. I felt bad. The unwritten rule was embarrassing or inconvenient. No damage. I paid for repairs. And he got his revenge. He planted a dozen pieces of smoked herring throughout my car. Took me 6 months to find the last piece, hidden under the carpet under the back window of my car. I can still smell it. I don't even own the car anymore. Back in middle school a friend of mine threw a small wadded piece of paper at me. I retaliated by throwing the only thing I could find, which was mud close to my chest. Smacked him right in the face with it. Worst part is, it turned out to be dog's tea that was at the bottom of my she. I still vividly remember his angry, "WTF man, I throw paper at you and you throw dog's tea?" My older brother was always quite horrible to me as a child and my parents never really did much about it. He was also much bigger than me, so I couldn't retaliate in a physical way cause I would be swiftly cripple cross-faced walls of Jericho. One day I had just had enough. My revenge? He had been playing Rome Total War for a good 6 hours a day for about 3 weeks. I started a new game and overwrote his save file. Never seen fury like it. I regretted it at the time cause he was so angry it scared me and it made him dislike me even more, but now I praise my 13-year-old self for hitting him where it clearly hurt most. I think I have told this before, but I think I was 15 and was in class and sat next to a friend of mine. P, for no reason, began to say, double quote, "Haha, your bald father," which I followed up with, "Haha, your bald mother." He started crying and ran to the teacher. I honestly forgot his mom had cancer and was getting chemo. P, not really relevant to this thread, but you reminded me of a funny incident. In high school, my mom finally insisted that I start shaving because my beginner's mustache looked trashy. So I did. And this kid from across the street, maybe 10 or so years younger than me, noticed. So he tried to mock me. Double quote. "Haha. You shave your face. Haha. Just like my mom. Only girls shave their mustache off." He thought he was mocking me. But all he was really doing was accidentally revealing that his mom had such a dense mustache that she needed to shave. IDK what it was. But a lot of the boys in my 6th grade class thought it was hilarious to try and trip people. They'd get your ass no matter how careful you were. Well, I was pretty good at avoiding it. But when I was in gym class, this kid named Joey got my ass hard. I was dribbling down court and he nailed me. I face planted hard. So I thought about how to get him. And I got him at lunch. He was holding a lunch tray, so his hands weren't as useful. He nailed a table and lost a tooth. I got suspended for 10 days. And a strict no tripping policy got implemented. Immediate suspensions if caught. Shit sucked. My dad beat my ass raw. Sorry, Joey. This one is not as serious or entertaining as most of the answers you'll find here. But when we were kids, my sister threw water at me and ran away, so I picked up my glass of water and ran after her. I threw the water from the glass at her once I had her cornered. Unfortunately, the glass had slipped out of my hand and it hit her right across her face. She got bruised and cut pretty bad. Yikes. When my friends and I were young, middle school or elementary age, there was this pair of sisters in our class. They were the epitome of a teacher's pet, help because their mother was the assistant teacher, and whenever the teachers would leave they would snitch on everyone. Sometimes if they didn't like you they would make shit up and you would get in trouble still. My friends and I were quite annoying, so we obviously got blamed for shit that we didn't do. No matter what we did, we were never believed in our innocence. So we did the logical thing of talking to every other student in the class and they shared our opinion of how much we all didn't like these girls. Everybody was fed up with their shitty. So we wrote a paper stating the shitty things these girls were doing and how everyone didn't like them and so on. We then got about 90% of our classmates to sign this paper. Then we gave it to the principal. I'm not 100% sure what happened next. But I do remember the principal coming into our class after recess and she began to ask if this paper was true and so forth, and everyone who signed it agreed. A few days later these girls were kicked out of school, or maybe they left due to humiliation. Parents decided to pull them from the school. Their mother was still the assistant teacher and she was crying about the whole thing, and she was saying things about how we are horrible and how could we lie about her angels. I felt a bit bad, but I was quite happy that those girls were no longer there because they were mean and massive liars. A roommate poured water on me while I was asleep. So I filled all his shirts and the pockets of all his trousers with chili powder. I didn't realize the powder had iron and it stained everything red, including any shirts he had tucked into work trousers and a lot of items he washed with them. I'm guessing he didn't pour water on you again. To this day he's still super careful handling drinks around me and makes jokes about it. It's been like 10 years and we don't even live together anymore. I guess revenge implies thinking out the act or some time between acts. But at the age of 14 I was rolling up the hose in my backyard with a friend since my mother told me to. The two girls next door were playing in their backyard and come over to talk. One 12 or so, the other 7. The 12-year-old happened to be standing on the hose, and I asked her to move. She did not. I pulled the hose hard enough to make her fall over. At this point the 7-year-old screamed bloody murder and ran right at me and bit my right on the stomach. She was not letting go, and I could see blood starting to stain my shirt. I grabbed her head and tried to pull her away, but nothing. So I just full on punched her right in her eye. I am not proud of this, but it had to be done. What was worse is that the house was owned by a local church where I happened to go to Boy Scouts. Everyone quickly knew I had punched a 7-year-old and given her a black eye, but no one cared why. When I was a kid I was at a local river, a great swimming spot lots of people came to. My friend pushes me in the river and naturally I came up spluttering and a little red in the face. But it was all in good fun. For the rest of the day I planned to get her back, waiting for my opportunity to push her in. Until she was at the edge of the river drying off. I pushed her. But her flailing and the slippery nature of the rocks she was on made her slip on the spot. And instead of just splashing into the water, she landed on her back hitting the rocks hard. And then fell into the water. She was winded, but thankfully otherwise unharmed. Our parents were furious at me, and I just spent the few seconds it took to get her out. Felt like a lot longer to me, just hoping I hadn't broken her back or something. 2/10 revenge. Would not do again. Edit. Wow, this really blew up. I hope we have all learned not to push people into pools and other bodies of water. I was 11. My older brother was 16. We would fight and argue, but one time I was running up the stairs away from him and he whipped the back of my legs with a long rubber chew toy. It left a pretty big figure 8 shaped welt on my legs. I knew he was faster and stronger than me and I knew if I tried to attack him he'd stop me. So I grabbed a flathead screwdriver and held it over the stove until it was red hot. I ran up to him and very openly went to stab him, knowing he'd stop me. He grabbed my wrist to stop my thrust, as anticipated, and I pushed the red hot head of it into his forearm as hard as I could. Man, I was a crazy asshole as a kid. Sorry Mike. Edit. Row. Didn't expect this much response to my weird childhood story. Yes. He had a scar for years. I will never forget the sound of his scream. It felt terrible. Good news. We are now super close. I was the best man at his wedding and am godfather to one of his kids. Everything's great between us now. I was dating this girl and my friend saw her around town a few times and humiliated her in an effort to embarrass me. I told him to stop bothering her, but he did it again. That night I convinced him to try getting back together with his wildly insane and manipulative ex that he hadn't spoken to in years, thinking that he would just humiliate himself by trying. Well, they banged and got back together for a while and had a baby. Now they are terrible single parents. When I was bullied by some local kids I filled the petrol tank of their family car with grass, dirt, sticks and stones, bottle caps, pretty much anything I could jam into the petrol tank. I felt sorry for that poor car. When I was about 7 or 8 there was this girl at my school that was absolutely horrible. We'll call her Cindy. Cindy would run up to you and pull your hair out, steal the toy you were playing with, eat your snack at snack time, etc. In other words, she was a real BTCH. One day as we were finishing up recess in the playground, she came up to me, pulled my hair, and took some with it. That was the last straw. As the teacher was gathering everyone inside and wasn't looking our way, I grabbed Cindy by her pigtail and dragged her over to the playground. Now this playground was built weird with a sort of enclosed area in the middle of 3 bridges that formed a triangle that you couldn't get out of. Sometimes us bigger kids would jump in there during hide and seek and climb out later. But Cindy couldn't because she was shorter. So I picked her up and threw her down in there and left to go back inside. It wasn't until about an hour later when the teacher realized that Cindy wasn't in class. I didn't say where she was and it took them another half hour to find her. I got in trouble and had to spend the next week in the principal's office and lost my Game Boy for a month. But Cindy never messed with me again. When I was in 5th grade, my teacher gave out a shitty ton of homework one day, so I got the whole class to help me write a letter to the principal. She found out and cried and shitty. I felt really horrible because she was just trying to get us ready for a test coming up. I still feel really bad every time I think about it. Way back in elementary school, a friend threw a piece of chalk that hit me square in the forehead. It was the most humiliating moment for younger me, as everyone who saw that started laughing their asses off. Kids are assholes. I plotted and planned my revenge. To get back in the exact same fashion over the next couple of days. One fine day, weapon in hand, I find him perfectly placed, a chalk throw away from me. I yell out his name and quickly launch the projectile as he spins around. For some reason he had his mouth open as he looked at me, and the piece of chalk flew directly into his throat. His eyes widen and he starts choking. I stood frozen in shock as he fell on his knees coughing. Luckily somebody grabbed him from behind and thumped his back. So he swallowed the piece. An adult walks in. Cannot remember who it was at the time. But she looks at me and asks what happened. At this point I'm shaking, realizing that I narrowly killed my friend. I say it was a mint. My friend, also shaken at this point, laughs it off, saying it went straight into his throat and he didn't taste it. The adult shakes her head and says next time just hand it like a normal person, and walks away. Years later, when we were moving away to another country, I remind him about the incident and come clean about the whole thing. He snaps and yells, "I knew it." This kid in my class at school kept insulting my mother. So I said to him that if he insults her one more time that I'll get him after class. Double quote. "Your mum's a SLT." He replied. So after class I waited for him outside, and when he came out the classroom I got him in a headlock. He forced his way up out of it, and then he managed to crack the top of his head off a fire alarm. Gashed his head open. He was bleeding all down his face and had to go to hospital. He was off school for 2 weeks after that too. I felt terrible about it. Edit. I can see this is causing quite a stir. So let me just clarify that this guy was a class idiot that misbehaved and always disrupted class. After I watched him hit his head off the fire alarm, I didn't see any blood. I had walked off at that point. Then he walked past me 2 minutes later and his head was gushing and he was crying. I felt so bad that I apologized to him whilst following him all the way to the nurse's room. I sat outside the nurse's room until the ambulance came. I didn't get in any trouble because he admitted it was his fault for goading me, and I was genuinely remorseful. Drunk guy came at me on my porch. I was in college. It was welcome week. Kid was all kinds of fact up. Tried to get him to leave and finally he came up on my porch and swung. I ducked him and shoved him away. He was too drunk. Couldn't keep his balance and bounced his face off the curb. Blood, teeth, it was brutal. I was afraid he was really hurt. But he came to pretty quickly. He ended up getting arrested before it was all said and done. When I was either 6 or 7 I had been being bullied by my neighbors on the bus. They had harassed me with toy knives which at the time I thought were real and had all around been very disgusting, with me trying to talk about sex and other things around me and trying to take away my innocence, which at the time I had no clue what they were talking about. I had had enough of it and I had told my mother, which told their mother what had happened, and I wouldn't necessarily say they didn't deserve what had happened to them, but I was a very empathetic kid and what happened to them had scarred me for most of my childhood. Their mother told their father their bad behavior and had beaten them quite badly. They left me alone for the remainder of my time being their neighbor, but I saw the cuts, scars and bruises that had been left on their young bodies and how their moods had changed afterwards from bratty little kids to completely silent and somewhat oppressed. 2 days ago. Actually. In my football I know. Game, this one clumsy defender kept catching my ankles seconds after I would pass the ball away. So one play he was clearing the ball and I just wanted to lay the kid out. As he was on his plant foot swinging I hit him with my shoulder hard, and as he was falling he grabbed me and took me down with him. I landed on his arm and it snapped like a twig between the wrist and the elbow. I feel awful. A married female co-worker I was sleeping with accused me of RP and sexual harassment when she thought her husband might find out. So I had the letters and pictures she had been sending me anonymously sent to her husband. She ended up getting fired and her husband tried to take her 2 kids away. He literally showed up at our workplace, threw the pictures and letters in her face, and dragged the kids away crying. A guy from a group I hung out with used window chalk to draw My Little Pony stuff on my car when I was 18. Not a big deal. Except he used glitter. And my windows were cracked so it got everywhere inside my car. I hate glitter. It's worse than sand. I told him I would get him back. He didn't have a car. He was 16. So I waited. 4 years later he bought a car. And I attacked after he had it for about a week. I window chalked him. And wrote, "I never forget," on the back window. Then saran wrap and chocolate syrup. Added some glitter. His car looked like a sparkling turd. He missed a test. Luckily his professor let him take it the next day. But he hasn't talked to me since when the group hung out. I might have gone a bit over the top. And I sure didn't mean to make him almost fail a class. Oh, I have one for this. My grandpa was a bit old school and gave me prison yard advice for my first week of school. He said, "If anyone picks on you, just deal with them right then. Don't take it." First week of kindergarten. A grade 1 kid was pushing me around, not letting me go back to class. I pushed him down against a fence and kicked him in the face 3 or 4 times, splitting his nose. Almost got kicked out of school. Until they found out my grandpa had told me to do it. Thing is, no one messed with me after and that guy was nice to me all the way through to graduation. Some girl hit my car in a hit and run. There was a witness to the crime, so the police were able to track her down. When I was asked if I wanted to press charges, I went for it. Turns out she had no license or insurance. She kept trying to fight the charges but wound up getting sued by my insurance, having to pay me restitution via the court system, and 4 separate charges between all her crimes, all of which included a decent fine. She was some 18-year-old single mom. I felt super bad by the end of it. A million years ago I worked in a large clothing store. This one girl I worked with would slap you on the back or pinch your arm or whatever as if it was a friendly gesture. It hurt. I don't know if she was pretending to be nice or was simply stupid, but it was very unwelcome and I imagine I told her so, but honestly don't remember anymore. What I do remember is, one day I'm heading up the escalator and there she is ahead of me. So I walk up and as I'm going past her I give her hardest friendly slap on the back I could. I may have gone a little overboard as she almost fell forward and definitely gasped in surprise. I don't think she ever came within arm's reach of me again. My brother and cousins were walking home from school. Well, my brother and I were walking and my cousins were on bikes. They kept circling us and making fun of us because we didn't have bikes. One of my cousins then spit on me. Out of reflex, I blasted her with my trumpet case and she went flying, landed on the concrete and broke her arm. I felt awful. It was the first and last time I ever hit a girl. My family believed every word of the story. Knew this cousin was always a total BTCH to me, and largely believed she had it coming. I still felt awful though. A kid on my track team would always come by and take a drink of whatever I had with me. I was sick of it and brought a root beer with me which had been spiked with 3x the recommended dose of root beer flavored X-Lax. Sure enough he came by and I said, "You know what, Tony? Why don't you just take the whole thing?" Well, we were having a home meet that day and he was our best pole vaulter and part of the relay team. I thought maybe he'd feel a little off and under pre-form. In the midst of our warm-ups, he went missing and was absent the entire meet.